As it's done for most of the week, social media has been playing a vital role in these latest developments as they've unfolded.
140 characters on Twitter can be just as powerful, if not more so, in the right hands.
Every day, in some way or another, the topic is trending on social media.
Modern day campaigning is all about social media.
Who were experiencing all of this that we're watching on the news firsthand, and they were commenting about it on social media.
Twitter,
now,
7.5 million people, hundreds of thousands of people in a short period of time.
They use social media as a way to vent and have one another get what's going on. And again, social media steps in. You have a Facebook page.
I think that the greatest change in some ways is the chatter that we have always observed among groups, but now groups' ability to reach out to a much broader swath of people than, quite frankly, we ever dealt with before. Now, for Jim, from a law enforcement perspective here in the nation, clearly a key issue. We're trying to look at the same phenomena overseas to see how can we provide warning and insights that facilitate law enforcement's ability to try to stop anything in the United States before it occurs.
I have the privilege of leading our geospatial intelligence profession, and that profession is on the either on the cusp or in the midst, depending on how you want to look at it, of a revolution. And that is because when I grew up in this business, we operated in the closed, behind vault doors, lots of classification code words after every one of our products, very limited audience, and by the way, very expensive business, and today, while much of that is still necessary for key sets of our partners at the highest levels of policy making and military planning, more and more we're getting a demand signal to take that success into the open. And what I mean by that is I mean in some ways to provide some reassurance to the people that fund us, the taxpayers, that they're getting a return on the investment. But two is the nature of the world. Yes, nation states are still a threat, and I know we'll talk about threats that we're currently facing. But more and more we're dealing with places without governments or with less governance in having to deal with the effects of that and the fallout of that. That's happening within an environment in which what I would call a traditional source has now had the additive benefit of having social media, press reporting. John's just elevated his open source enterprise within his agency. But to me, while that holds great potential, it does also hold the potential for chaos, analytic chaos. That is the sense that if you can't create some coherence around that noise for ourselves, but then our customers, you could be overwhelmed by it. So whereas I once learned how to hunt imagery because that's what you had to do, and you spent a lot of time on the hunt. Today it's more of a filtering, gathering, seeking understanding, creating sense out of that noise.
I and others at CIA are involved right now in what we call a modernization effort, trying to transform the agency in ways that we're able to deal with the challenges that lie ahead of us as opposed to those that we had to deal with in our last 68 years. And bringing together the tremendous capabilities and expertise in the agency in a more integrated fashion. But at the same time, for the first time in 50 years, we've set up a new directorate on digital innovation because of the prominence that the digital environment has in terms of all of our mission areas. So when I look out over the coming decade, we're going to have all of these challenges that we're facing overseas in terms of conflict, strife, terrorism, whatever. But on top of that, we're going to have this challenge of that digital environment. And I do think that we as a country, and indeed internationally, we have to get ahead of it.
It's interesting, last 2 weeks, we had a senior leader seminar down in Tampa talking about the Middle East. What the Middle East might look like after the dust settles. Where will we stand after the conflict over the next 5 years plays itself out? And then I was in Brunei a couple days ago talking to the Asia Pacific Intel chiefs in the region, talking about their challenges, maritime security, cyber, terrorism. And it really kind of struck me how, and I know this sounds trite, and I know it's not unique, how complex the world is now. But it's always been complex. We know that. But the challenge now is how quickly information moves in this complex world, and how quickly technology moves in this complex world, and how it shifts the balance of power as we think about the vitality or the importance of nation states or organizations and how they connect together. And we think about resurgent powers in regions across the globe and the competition that comes with that. And it strikes me as probably the most fascinating time, certainly in my career, for us to be in the intelligence community. So we've asked the workforce at DIA to do just one thing, to be the premier all-source intelligence agency in the world. Well, that puts me in competition with some of the folks in the room. I'm okay with that. We are pushing that organization to be the very best because the challenges that we face today and the decisions that we must feed to our decision makers and our policy makers require all of us to compete to be the very best at this business. Failure to do so is not an option.